Councilors? I declare this meeting open for the transaction of any business which may properly come before it. The city of Moose Jaw is located on Treaty 4 territory, the original lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. The Nahiawak translation of Moose Jaw is Mosotapskin and is the shared landscape for Indigenous peoples and settlers from around the world who call Moose Jaw home. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we're committed to move forward in equal partnership with Indigenous nations with respect and in the spirit of truth and reconciliation. All councillors are here this evening, nobody joining us virtually. And next we'll confirm the agenda. I'll need a motion that the agenda for the regular meeting of City Council on Monday, May 13th, 2024 be adopted as presented. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Looning, seconded by Councillor Blanc. All in favor? That is carried. In terms of public acknowledgements, you can see that we are all wearing our Moose Jaw Warriors jerseys tonight. And I think I would like to congratulate on behalf of City Council and administration the Moose Jaw Warriors for winning the East Division of the Western Hockey League. Now they're now involved in a series with Portland to declare the Western Hockey League champions. We're up 2-0. There's games this week starting on Tuesday. And I want to thank the Moose Jaw Warriors for allowing me the loan of this beautiful New Jersey. And this will be sent to Charlie Clark in Saskatoon, so Charlie can wear it at the City of Saskatoon's next council meeting. We have some other acknowledgements this evening, equally as important. We acknowledge that the month of May 2024 will be proclaimed Melanoma and Skin Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Moose Jaw. Some information about skin cancer. It is the most common of all cancers, and 1 in 6 Canadians born in the 1990s will get skin cancer in their lifetime. The Save Your Skin Foundation is dedicated to the fight against non-melanoma skin cancers, melanoma, and other ocular melanoma through this nationwide education program, advocacy, and awareness initiatives. And also today, you can see some of the councillors, especially Councillor Blanc's got his moose hide on. I wish to rise and acknowledge and proclaim the day of May 16th, 2024 as Moose Hide Campaign Day in the City of Moose Jaw. It's a national day of ceremony where all Canadians are invited to stand up and raise a collective voice against violence towards women, children, and all those, and also those along gender continuum. Grounded in Indigenous ceremony, this shared action is a tangible way to end gender-based violence across Canada. And if any of you are interested, the Moose Hide Campaign puts this out, and it says here, go to moosehidecampaign.ca. Is there any other acknowledgements of council this evening? Very well, we'll go and adopt our minutes. I'll need a motion that the minutes of the regular meeting of City Council held on Monday, April 22nd, 2024 be approved and adopted. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Froese, second by Councillor Logan. All in favor? That is carried. Is there any member of council required to declare a pecuniary interest on any matter on the agenda this evening? I see none. Next we'll have a public hearing. I'll need a motion that we move into public hearing. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Looning, second by Councillor Eby. All in favor? That is carried. Is there anyone in the gallery who wishes to address City Council regarding bylaw number 5719, Mobile Home Licensing Bylaw Amendment 2024-1? Seeing none, I'll move to the next one. Is there anyone in the gallery who wishes to address City Council regarding bylaw number 5720, Property Tax Bylaw Amendment 2024? We have one. Would you please approach the podium, sir? State your name, and you have 10 minutes to present to council.
Thank you very much, council. My name is Art King. I'm here concerning the 2024 budget. There's a couple of items that meet my concern. The first one item on the agenda is of course the speed limit. Of course, the agenda that was put forward by the city of Moose Jaw was a poll, and 67% of the people in Moose Jaw are objectionable to reducing the speed limit. But that's not my biggest concern. My biggest concern is the budget in general and how that budget is created. On the meeting of April 8th, it was brought to the attention the gas fund tax. And I'm not going to mention any names, but everybody here was there at that particular meeting. And the gas fund tax by itself is a very good program. But unfortunately, the factual information that was put forward at that meeting was not factual. Inflation is not a factor in the process for the mill rate. I talked to a gentleman and to a lady at SUMA, and in fact, the exact opposite is true. Inflation is a discretionary item that is put forward by the economy. Mill rates are determined by the assessed value of the land versus the budget that is put forward by this particular council. And I wish it was true that it was inflationary, because my property in 2011 had a $768 mill rate, and that is not the education portion, that is the city council portion. The inflationary rate on that particular item from 2011 to 2024 is 34%. That's compounded interest, inflation over inflation year to year. Unfortunately, my taxes has gone up 84%, a difference of 50%. So that item of just a slight item of inflation is really great in Moose Jaw, and we should be happy for it, is not a factual item. But what is really troubling is 3 out of the 7 people before me ran for the mayor's office, and that 2 weeks later, there wasn't one person to make that correction. That's troubling to me, because if you don't know where the money's coming from, how are you going to know where it's going to be spent? Now, that in itself isn't a major portion, but it's easy to milk or trim low-rising fruit on a tree. And that's the situation the city of Moose Jaw takes when it comes to taxation. I've been at this council many times, and I've indicated that parking revenues that are $1 million for 5 years. I talked to officials in this office and upstairs, and you just recently passed a bylaw. Doesn't matter what it is, I've got it written down here. And there may be some money being collected on that $1 million. There may not be. Going back on low-hanging fruit, there's an excess of $400,000. It's nice that you give the Moose Jaw Warriors a nice acclamation, Mayor. But unfortunately, the truth of the matter is they're somewhere between $400,000 and $600,000 behind on their pledge. Now, $400,000 at 5% interest is $20,000 a year that I, as a taxpayer, and taxpayers have to make up. If it's $600,000, it's $30,000. Our administration officer worked out a deal, and the going rate for the compensation for the Warriors, it looks like it's fine, but in actual fact, every year that they don't make their pledge, it's $20,000 to $30,000 less than the going rate. Now, I don't have a problem with that either. Somebody has to pay the bills as long as the paying taxpayer knows about it. Now, what I really have a problem is 4 years ago, I made a presentation at this office concerning speeds and hydrology, and a good friend of mine who's an engineer with Stantec. We laid out a program of only 10 minutes, and I covered all the bases of what the advantages are of having a reduced speed. Hydrology on curbs, hydrology on water, the excess speed of a tire going through a pothole. It's compounded by each mile an hour. I indicated in that report where SGI sits on that report. But this council saw fit to go to an outside source and get a report. I don't know what it cost, but that was 4 years ago. Anyway, I don't imagine this report's going. This little 10-minute seminar that I'm doing here is going to make any difference. But as a taxpayer, this council has to be more responsible to the taxes that are due. And as the Moose Jaw is a corporation, and like every corporation that I've ever been involved with, the reason that people are allowed to get incentives and grow their salary is to hire more people under them. Now that's a bad situation. This council here dictated $176,000 for security. It only spent $75,000 or $76,000. So they saw fit to, well, we'll just take that $100,000 that was in the budget and we'll hire another employee. That's all the city of Moose Jaw needs, another employee. In 2015, there was 15,000 people in Moose Jaw. The budget was $15 million. Today, we've got 34,000 people in Moose Jaw, and the budget's $59 million. 4 to 1, where it was 1 to 1. And you can say, oh, it's inflation. No, it's not inflation. It's poor workmanship and management of the labor force that we have. I came here and I've told stories when they were working on Caribou and 9th Avenue, 8 people standing around, 4 people at different intersections, a man and a student and a barricade stopping traffic where the sign said, do not enter, road closed. The barricade by itself would have done the job. Total mismanagement and the taxpayers picking up the boot. Thanks for your time. If there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. King. Is there any questions? I'm seeing none. Thank you, Mr. King.
Thanks for your time.
Is there anyone in the gallery who wishes to address City Council regarding bylaw number 5721, tax payments, discounts, and penalties bylaw amendment 2024? I'm seeing none. Therefore, I'll need a motion that the public hearing be closed and that the bylaws be introduced and considered during the committee of the whole section of the agenda. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Eby, second by Councillor Looning. All in favor? That is carried. We'll now go into the committee of the whole. I'll need a motion that we go into the committee of the whole under the chairmanship of Deputy Mayor Councillor Looning to deal with original communications, delegations, and petitions. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Logan, second by Councillor Crows. All in favor? That is carried. Councillor Looning.
Nope, just give me 1 second. I don't know what's going on. I do now, yeah, I think. Sorry, everyone. I'm just getting weird things. So I'm. Mayor Tolley. No, not your fault. Good evening, everyone. I'll call the meeting of Committee of the Whole to order. We have 8 items in Committee of the Whole this evening. The first is communication number 73 from the City Clerk's office, re a request to address the Good Neighbors Group. Councillor Logan.
Thank you, Chair. I would move that Ms. Carolyn Ross be allowed to address members of City Council.
Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Ms. Ross, you're already at the podium. That's great. You have 10 minutes to present.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for making the time on your agenda. My name is Carolyn Ross. I'm a member of the Neighbors Group and a citizen of Moose Jaw. I'm here today to express concerns of the hours of public access to City Hall. During the pandemic, public access was limited, May 31st, 2021. The pandemic is now over. Moose Jaw is the 4th largest city in Saskatchewan, and we have the least amount of public access hours to City Hall. Moose Jaw is running a close second to Morris, Saskatchewan, with a population of 240 people. The restricted public access impacts many citizens attempting to access City Hall. One young family I spoke to had to take vacation days from their jobs to access City Hall for a permit application. Every City Hall municipal office in Saskatchewan has returned to regular business hours with the exception of Moose Jaw. During the April 29th council meeting, there was a discussion regarding the speed limit changes to the school zones, playgrounds, and public facilities. When Councillor Froh said, Moose Jaw is the last one to do it, seems this statement would apply to the City Hall hours as well. We have spoke to or searched online 50 communities within Saskatchewan, and that's where that information is coming from. Least amount of access to the public. We are requesting the City Hall hours return to the original hours of 8:15 to 5, effective immediately.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. That's your presentation?
That's it.
Thank you. Any questions for our presenters, Council? I don't see any, so thank you for being here,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Ross. Council? Councillor Robinson?
Thank you, Chair. Well, Ms. Ross certainly brings forward some questions that I have. Is why haven't we switched back to regular hours, or why do we limit the access to our public, to the people that we serve?
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Ms. Carmichael?
Good evening. Thank you, Chair. Through you to Councillor Robinson. What I'd like to mention is on the media release, it was effective on the 31st of May, that it was the new permanent hours for City Hall. So that's when it was published back in 2021. And at the time, it was decided, because of the reduced number of residents that come to City Hall now, it seems like it's a new norm, certainly for residents to now use more and more the services that we have online and to be able to access either through paying parking tickets online or some of the other requests for permits is done. We've seen a reduction of about a third of people coming to City Hall for regular business. I'd like to note that we are open at lunchtime, which many businesses are not open at lunchtime in the city. So it's straight from 10 to 4 p.m. with all the services that are given at that point. I'd like to offer council, if you want a more detailed report on the reasons why we have the hours at 10 to 4, we can certainly submit a report on this.
Thank you, Ms. Carmichael. Any other comments? Or Councillor Robinson?
Thank you. Again, I guess my question through you, Chair, to administration is there a significant cost in keeping our hours, extending our hours? And I'm just wondering if the factors that we've seen have reduced numbers is because we don't have as many open hours.
Ms. Carmichael, response to that?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Councillor Robinson. I think for us, it's important to be as efficient as we can with the employees that we have at the city. The customer service reps that we have downstairs use the first hour and 45 minutes before City Hall doors are open to do some of the work, either cash in or cash out, or also do some of the work from online transactions that we see overnight. So that is the reason why we typically have the time at the beginning and at the end of the day to process those transactions, and for productivity as well, to ensure we have our staff as productive as we can during the day.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Council? Councillor Eby?
Thank you. Well, I do think it would be beneficial for us to have an actual report. I've been here the whole time, and I actually showed up at City Hall one day at 9:30 to come get my own business license because I kind of forgot. So, it is inconvenient. I would appreciate seeing the full report so we can then, maybe there is a different decision to be made. I know administration has their reasons, but council may have some other input that we might want to see things change. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor. Lost you. Councillor Logan.
Thank you, Chair. Question through you to administration, or just a comment, I guess. Perhaps it's productivity, and the thought process is if citizens aren't coming in and going upstairs to speak to directors and people at certain desks, that they would be more productive. I'm wondering then if, with this report, if perhaps we could look at the option of having citizens at the very least be able to come in and pay those, talk to the customer service reps at the front desk, and perhaps not gain access to the rest of the building, but come in and deal with parking tickets and dropping off payments or permit applications and things. So I think if we're going to do a report, I'd love to see that piece added to perhaps looking at, blocking off and just having citizen access to the front counter area. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Froese.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think this is also a good opportunity to just inform the general public on how you access our different departments for different reasons, and that too. I think that might be beneficial as well. And also included in that report, if there's any financial implications for extending. And I know years ago we were open for an extended period of time, like on a Thursday evening when there used to be Thursday night shopping downtown. I think it was 7 o'clock kind of jumps into my mind, but that was, over a decade ago at least, when online access really didn't exist. And that, but yeah, I think this is a good opportunity to inform citizens too on ways that they can access. Maybe they don't know some of the options that are available through the online portal. Great, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Pass the gavel for a minute. I don't see anyone else in the queue. Just a couple of comments. I actually haven't understood for a while why we're not open regular hours again. I too have had some citizens ask me that they tried to, come in before their shift at 11 or something and wanted to, they had a whole schedule of things and wanted to be here by 8 to get their business done, and they couldn't get here by, it's closed at 10 or it's open at 10 o'clock. So I actually believe that it would be not efficient for administration to do a report. I mean, staff are here, right? It's not like there's, in my mind, I don't think there's additional cost to having the doors open at 8 o'clock, but I mean, I could be wrong in that regard, but I do think we should go back to regular hours. That's just my opinion. And I think that it's long overdue actually already. So I'll take the gavel back. We do need a motion, Council. I don't see anybody else on. Councillor Logan, go ahead.
Just one more comment, Chair, through you. I might be an opportunity also to have a bit of a deep dive into the website and the usability, like how user-friendly it is when you want to pay something online, and that's why folks are coming in. And I'm certainly not meaning to beat down anybody who's in charge of our website, but sometimes it's not all that easy to navigate, and perhaps it might be an opportunity to do a bit of a deep dive into that while we're at it, just to make it a little more user-friendly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Logan. Councillor Froese.
Well, I'll make a motion to refer this back to administration for a report to at the next City Council meeting.
All right, we have a motion to refer it back to administration for a report. There's no discussion on that motion. All in favor? And opposed? That's carried. Next item in Committee of the Whole is report number 89 from the City Clerk's Office, RIA request to address Save Your Skin Foundation. Councillor Blanc.
Thank you, Chair. I would move that representatives of Save Your Skin Foundation be allowed to address members of City Council.
Thank you. All those in favor? That is carried. Now, they're online. Okay. Welcome. Can you hear us?
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You can just state your name for the record, and you have 10 minutes to present. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. My name is Kathy Bernard, and I am the founder of Save Your Skin Foundation. And again, I want to thank you so much for having me again this year and proclaiming May to be Melanoma Awareness Month. Next slide, please. As was mentioned earlier, skin cancer is the most common of all cancers. 1 in 6 Canadians born in the 1990s will get skin cancer in their lifetimes. There are now more new cases of skin cancer each year than the number of breast, prostate, lung, and colon cancer combined. Next slide, please. I know that firsthand, as in 2003, I was diagnosed with the deadliest form of skin cancer, melanoma, and by 2005, it had spread to my liver, my lung, my bone, my adrenal gland, and my kidney, and I was given 6 months to live. I would never have thought that all my days as a child on a lake or in my days at the softball diamond would turn so deadly. Next slide, please. Melanoma is now the 7th most common cancer in Canada and the 4th most common among people ages 15 to 29. It is one of the few cancers with incident rates on the rise among Canadians. Exposure to UV radiation through exposure to sunlight, tanning beds, and sun lamps appears to be a major risk factor for melanoma. Next slide, please. I always like to remind everybody that your skin is an organ, and it is the largest organ of your body, and it's the one organ that we can see, or a loved one can see. Early detection and prevention is key to this type of cancer. No cancer, including melanoma, can ever be prevented with 100% certainty. But the good news is, with melanoma, is that the risks are well known. So steps can be taken to dramatically reduce your risk of developing this deadly disease. So I'd like to leave you with a few protections. Next slide, please. Always have sunscreen with you so you can apply it whenever an unplanned outdoor activity arises. Use a sunscreen with an SPF of at least 30 whenever you are outdoors, and please remember, even on those gray days. Seek shade when the UV index is high. Wear protective clothing with long sleeves, hats, and sunglasses. Check for moles and changes in new moles and see your doctor immediately if anything is suspicious. Limit your sun exposure between 10 and 4 if you can, and stay out of those tanning beds. Get a cancer-related checkup by a doctor, including a skin examination every 3 years between ages 20 and 40, and annually for those 40 and older. If you see something suspicious, see your doctor immediately. Next slide, please. What can you do to protect your community? You can always incorporate a sun safety through environmental design program, which involves considering sun safety measures when you're constructing new structures, parks, sports venues. You can always take part in our sunscreen dispenser pilot program this year. Next slide, please. I'll just remind you a little bit about our Save Your Skin Foundation. We are a patient-led, not-for-profit organization founded by my family and myself in 2006, and I live here in British Columbia. The reason the foundation was started because, as you could see from my journey in those previous slides, I had to leave my province to get into clinical trials that would ultimately save my life. And I wanted to make sure that all Canadians diagnosed with melanoma, non-melanoma, or ocular melanoma would have the same success that I had had. We are dedicated to fighting non-melanoma, melanoma, and ocular melanoma through education, advocacy, and awareness initiatives all across Canada. Save Your Skin provides a community of support for oncology patients and caregivers throughout the entire continuum of care, from prevention to diagnosis to survivorship. We are the leading melanoma organization in Canada and actually collaborate with other patient organizations all across the country and beyond. We're very unique as a patient organization. As I mentioned, when I had to travel outside of my province for treatment, it was quite an expense to my family, including, believe it or not, having to pay for treatment. So at Save Your Skin, all the funds that we receive in donations go directly to patients. It can be for parking, for gas, for daycare, for accommodation if they have to leave anywhere in their community or outside of their province. And in some cases, we've even paid for treatments if needed. Once again, I want to thank you for proclaiming May as Melanoma Awareness Month and for helping us raise awareness about this type of cancer to your communities. Go Warriors.
Thank you. Thanks for being here again. Any questions, Council, for our presenter? Seeing none, I need direction, Council. Mayor Tolley.
Well, I'd like to thank our presenter. It's something we need to be reminded of every spring. We're going to be outside a lot this summer at the lake north of Moose Jaw, and gardening and farming. Everybody needs a reminder to get that sunblock on. So I appreciate this presentation. I will move that communication CC 2024-0089 regarding the request to address Save Your Skin Foundation be received and filed.
Thank you, Mayor Tolley. Councillor Logan.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a question through you to Director Blais before we call this question, just regarding the sunscreen pilot program she spoke of. I'm wondering if you heard about that and if that's something the city can, in fact, reach out and ask about.
Mr. Blais.
Thank you for the question. No, I've not heard of it, but I can follow up with our recreation team to see, get some more details.
I think that would be wise, and certainly if it's a pilot program and it's something that the city can do, I'd like to look into that. So thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you, Director Blais.
Thank you. Councillor Eby.
Thank you. Well, along those same lines, I think it would, I mean, we don't have any plans for a new pool at this point in time, but new pool and other outdoor recreational facilities, sun safety measures would be great to have part of the design when those things come up. I know we're not going to go back and do things that have already been done, but maybe when new facilities come online, that can be a part of design. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? That is carried. Next item in Committee of the Whole is communication number 90 from the Planning and Development Services Department, request to address Mr. J.C. Chokar. Councillor Eby.
Thank you. I will move that Mr. J.C. Chokar be allowed to address members of City Council.
Thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. Mr. Chokar, welcome. You have 10 minutes to present.
About the development of that 24-unit apartment building. So I just want to say thank you, City Council, once again for letting me speak on the proposed development. Welcome to the presentation on the proposed rezoning from multi-residential to mixed residential commercial. So from an R3 to R4. There's a pressing need for a convenience store in the surrounding area at Sask Poly. Moose Jaw Apartments, along with Highland Courts Ltd., has been looking after Moose Jaw housing needs since 1994. With Moose Jaw and Regina Construction Company, has been building new developments and doing their own renovations in their own properties for the last 20 years. And the slide, if you go to the next slide, please. That's the development that we want to do over there. On the next slide, the top view. So the front side is Laurier Street, the side is Algoma, and then right behind is the back alley where the baseball diamond is. In the summertime, the kids are usually using that as a cricket field. And right in front of the Laurier Street, that's where the retail stores would be. So if you go to the next slide, that's where we would have the retail stores, right underneath there, where the parking would be in the front. And if you go the next slide, please.
And the next one?
Next one. And one more. Yeah, right there. So that would be the front where we would have the two retail stores. Great need. There's a great need for a convenience store in the surrounding area, as there's a lack of essential commercial facilities within walking distance, a high density and growing population for students in the given area, and a lack of transportation for the new students arriving. Immediate access to essential amenities for international students and for the local residents that are there. And yeah, we can have the store structured between the hours of 7 till 10. I just think with the amount of students that are there, I think it'd be the best idea to have a convenience store in that area with that development.
Next.
Yeah. And we do have a signed petition with at least, I think, close to 1,000 students that are wanting a store in that area.
We have submitted that one.
And we've submitted that as well, yeah.
Okay.
So challenges facing the students due to lack of nearby amenities and needing for a convenient shopping option for daily essentials. The lack for transportation, vehicles, and lack of funds are faced by new students, and having essential services within the walking distance for students will be convenient. As of right now, we have support from SAS Polytech instructors and local residents for the proposed store that's there. So, yeah. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Shokar. Thank you. Any questions for our presenter? Councillor Froese.
Thank you, Chair. Well, thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Shokar, for your presentation this evening. Just the retail space you want below, did you say you wanted 2 retail stores? It's going to be one big store?
It's one big space, about 1,580 square feet, but you could subdivide it if you wanted to.
Okay, so you're thinking of having like 2 opportunities for somebody to
Yeah,
have retail
yeah,
under there?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I just wondered, yeah, if you're splitting those off or not, yeah. Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. Well, thank you to the Shokars for the faith in our community to get something like this going. Recently, I attended a graduation event at SAS Poly, and I very much heard of how much people would like some more amenities in that area. And it's funny you mentioned near the cricket field. I think one of the things I heard quite often there was that there's a lot of our students playing cricket, and so maybe that's the next thing we need is a cricket field to go along with my pickleball courts.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Yeah, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, or what's your direction, Council? Councillor Eby.
Thanks. Just wondering if administration had anything they wanted to add to this.
Ms. Sanson.
Thank you, Chair. We would support moving forward with the bylaw prep and advertising and to the neighbors and in the paper at this point.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Councillor Froese.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, what does the petition play in the role of sort of communicating? Because it's not sort of a normal thing that we have, but it certainly shows the support for it.
It would show support, I think, in bringing the bylaw forward. It would just show support through that process when it gets to council.
Okay, so great. Yeah, I think this is a great idea. It's a great idea for mixed use, having residential above and retail below, especially in this area. I think in such close proximity to a lot of other housing units as well. And as Councillor Robinson said, there's a huge amount of students that live in this area and so I think it's having a retail space in this spot is a good distance away from Main Street and 9th Avenue, where you can also access retail, but also, it's a shorter walk for students who are going to SAS Poly, and as I said, through some of the other residential areas around there. So I think it's a really promising application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Blanc.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to move the motion. I'd like to speak to it. I would move that city administration proceed with advertising and bylaw amendment preparation to rezone portions of lot 48 to 52, block 26, plan N55 4537, extension 0, civically known as 1345 Algoma Avenue, from R3 high density residential district to R4 core mixed residential district, and from R33F1 high density residential district and F1 flood fringe overlay district to R4F1 core mixed residential district and F1 flood fringe overlay district, and that all costs associated with the application be borne by the applicant. And just in speaking to this, I think this is great for that community. I've seen students walking, numerous times from either Main Street or from up in Thatcher, the stores up there, carrying small bags of groceries. So I think this is a great project for this community, and I certainly welcome it, and I congratulate the builders for thinking of this idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eby.
Thank you. Well, I'm 100% in favor of this, and I think it's a great idea, great use of that property down there. I do think it's important to note, though, for anyone who may be listening or reading about this later, that 2 of the lots are located almost entirely in the floodway, and so no new structure would be approved in that floodway. So the administration has worked with the developer and the developer's designer to be sure that it will all work on that spot, and there will be people that remember flooding and such, so they'll be concerned. So there won't be concern because it will be built properly, and it does make note in the report that any new structures would be confined to lots 48 to 50 and would possibly require some floodproofing measures, and I know that the developers and the designers and administration will be sure those things are in place. So with those things looked after in this report, I'm 100% in favor of this. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions, Council? Seeing none, I will call the question on the motion. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Moving on to the next item in Committee of the Whole, we have report number 81 from the Planning and Development Services Department, request to erect sunroom over deck in slump zone, 297 Grandview Street West. Ms. Sanson.
Thank you, Chair. I would request that City Council table this report. We'd like to do some further review prior to consideration.
Thank you. Request from Administration Council. Councillor Froese.
Yeah, I'll move the motion to table this until the next City Council meeting.
Is that good enough time frame, Ms. Sanson? Okay. Tabling motion, no discussion. All those in favor? That's carried. Next item in Committee of the Whole is communication number 91 from the Financial Services Department, first quarter 2024 financial report. Mr. Acker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll give you a brief overview of our first quarter results and then open it up for any questions that Council might have. So the first, our report is broken into a number of sections. First section is the revenue and expenditure summary, and I just wanted to touch on some of the highlights that we see in that summary. So first off, you'll notice that municipal taxation, there is no revenue in that category at this point in time, and that again is because we don't normally send out our tax notices until June of each year. So there's no tax revenue and no concern in that regard. Another area, other levies, you were seeing in that report that the revenue is somewhat ahead of budget at about 40%. We would expect it to be closer to 25%. Reason for that is our 15-wing fire suppression revenue. We've received 2 quarters in the first quarter of this year. So that's pushed that category up into that 40% range. In terms of our contribution grants and subsidies, one thing we notice every year is majority of monies we receive in this revenue category is related to provincial government funding, and again, we don't normally start receiving that money until the second quarter of the year. So again, there's very little revenue in that area. Overall for revenues, to the end of the first quarter, we've received about $3.36 million in revenue, and that compares fairly favorable to last year where we were just shy of $3 million. In terms of expenditures, the summary of expenditures on page 2 of the report, just note a few areas. First off, if you look at the general government area, our expenditures are trending at 29% of the total budget for 24. We would expect it to be closer to about 25%. Rationale for that is our annual insurance costs have been allocated in the first quarter, whereas last year we did that in the second quarter, and that's about $600,000. So that pushes that up significantly, but isn't a concern overall. In terms of our protective services area, things are coming in basically where we would expect. 25% of the budget has been utilized, and we're 25% of the way through the year. So that is that is good news in that regard. Also good news is in terms of our public works area. Expenditures are 23% of the budget for the first quarter. When we look at where we were at in 2023, that we were at 37% of the budget. So there's been some significant reductions there as compared to last year. And once I get into the detailed expenditure section, I'll give you a little bit more detail on where those savings are. In terms of our recreation and community services, again, costs are running about 23% of budget and really on par with last year, so no concerns there. Overall, for our expenditures, we're just over $14 million in terms of overall expenditures, and that's about 23% of our annual budget allotment, and that's just up slightly from 2023 levels when we were at $13.5 million. Moving on to page 3 and 4 of the report, the detailed summary of expenditures. As I mentioned, in terms of the general government area, you're seeing those increased costs in the financial services area, and that relates to the insurance allocation that I previously mentioned. You'll also note in our information technology area that our costs are up as well. That really relates to our annual service agreements that we pay. A lot of those get paid in the first quarter of the year versus second and third. So there's an over expenditure in the first quarter, but it evens out as the year goes on. In terms of our human resources area as well, we're seeing that about 33% of the budget has been expended. That's due to some contributions for service and sick pay that have occurred in the first quarter versus the second quarter last year. And as well, this year we have a workers' compensation surcharge that's been charged to that area. So that's pushed that overall expenditures up in that area. In terms of our public works area, as I mentioned, expenditures are $1,218,000 in 24 as compared to 23 when we were at $1,840,000. We've seen decreases in two major areas, one being the other services area and our workshop area. When we look at our other services area in 2023, we had issues, I guess, with allocation of expenditures. We had a lot of expenditures in our other services area that ultimately, as we got through the year, we got sorted out and allocated to the appropriate business units. That, of course, isn't occurring in 24 because we've allocated them correctly. In terms of our workshop, really it's broken into two areas. One is workshop operation, the other is fleet. Our workshop operation is on budget. Our fleet is still a little bit over budget. We're sitting at $134,000 loss on our equipment, but that certainly compares favorably to 23 when we were at $600,000 loss. So we're going to continue to strive to reduce that loss overall on our equipment, but certainly progress is being made. In terms of our parks, recreation, and community services area, again, expenditures are on track. The only exception is our third-party programming. A lot of our third-party groups get their first half of the year funding in the first quarter, so that's why you see expenditures being a little higher than the 25% level that we often look for. In terms of pages 5 to 10 of the report, that's our transit, waterworks, wastewater, and solid waste utilities. I'll just touch on some high points there. In terms of our transit area, regular transit and paratransit both, the only areas of concern is vehicle maintenance are up year over year from 23 to 24 in both of those areas. The good news with that is although our costs are going up, we do have 2 new transit buses coming in 2024, and as well we expect to have 2 paratransit buses as well. So that should hopefully curb that rise in vehicle maintenance costs, and we should expect to see a reduction. That's what we're hoping going forward. In terms of our waterworks utility, one thing that will jump out at you is our revenues, our general service revenues. They're only 10% of budget. We'd expect them to be closer to 25. The reason for that is part of our 23 audit. Our auditors have required us to do an accrual of revenues for 2023, something that had never been done in the past. It's a significant accrual. It's about $1.6 million. So what happens is we do the accrual in 23, and then it's actually a negative for the revenue in 24. But as we progress through 24, you'll see that go back to normal revenue levels. So nothing to be overly concerned about, but it does jump out a little bit when you look at the report. The only other thing I would highlight in terms of our waterworks is just in terms of our Buffalo Pound Water Treatment Plant cost of water. You'll see for the quarter it's up about $140,000 as compared to 23, and that's a reflection of our additional costs for the plant rehabilitation renewal. There's a capital charge in our water costs that we pay to Buffalo Pound Water Treatment Corporation. And as you can see, it's not insignificant in terms of our overall cost for our utilities. So. Wastewater, again, same thing with the revenues. We have an accrual there, so that had to be accounted for. So revenues appear to be down, but as we get through the year, that will even itself out. Only other area that you might notice in the wastewater is our service connection costs are up, but our revenues related to those are as well. So not overly concerned in that regard. And then last but not least, in terms of our revenue and expenditure report, is our solid waste utility. Revenues are trending a little bit less than last year, about $110,000 less. Although we do know in the coming quarters that we are going to have a significant amount of sludge from our Buffalo Pound Water Treatment Plant dumped at the waste landfill again. So that will increase revenues, certainly offset that $110,000 shortfall that we have right now. Just moving on through the report, in terms of our capital project status report, that's the second section of the financial review. I won't go through that, but it does give you a good overview of where we're at in terms of our capital projects. Most of those, of course, are just getting underway for the year, but it does give you a good overview of that. In terms of statistical information, we provide information in terms of our property tax arrears, taxes receivable, borrowing, and tenders. One thing I would draw your attention to is we added a new chart in terms of the tax arrears, just to give you an idea of the breakdown between our various classes of properties, what makes up those arrears. I would note our arrears are up year over year comparison, and that seems to be a trend that we've had for the last couple of years where our arrears have been trending upwards. So, in terms of the Moose Jaw Event Center, presented to you is their financial report. You can see overall for the first quarter, a very good first quarter. They're basically showing a break-even point in terms of their overall net income, whereas that would have, at this point, if it was based on budget, we were budgeting a loss of about $135,000. So been good as well. The food and beverage statement is there. You can see that sales have been significant, almost $700,000 in sales and just a little over $260,000 in terms of net profit on our food and beverage. So with that, I would conclude my report and open it up for any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Acker. Questions or comments on the report, Council? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. Question through you to admin. When you say we're trending 110, I'm not clear on the landfill revenues trending less. Is that 110 annually, or is that just for the first quarter, meaning like we're trending to be 440 on an annual basis?
Mr. Acker.
Thank you, Chair, through you to Councillor Robinson. That would just be the difference from 23 first quarter to 24 first quarter, so we're down about $110,000. As I mentioned, we don't expect that to continue on, being that we do expect to have significant revenue from the Buffalo Pound sludge that will be dumped. So just pointing out that right now at this point, we are a little bit less in terms of revenue than we would have expected. Thank you.
And if I may, with the tax arrears, we are currently at about $1 million more in arrears than we were in 22. What do we have a plan to correct that?
Mr. Acker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to Councillor Robinson. Well, we certainly do have a plan. We actively go about a process of tax enforcement for those properties. Reality is, at the end of the day, many of our citizens are facing hardships in terms of the amount they can pay. So there is only so much we can do in terms of that tax enforcement process, in terms of arranging payment plans and those sorts of things. We certainly try to be as flexible as possible. At the end of the day, we do have the option, obviously, of taking properties. We do that as an absolute last resort. But certainly as we move forward, we're going to continue to monitor this, and there may be needs to look at additional enforcement in terms of ultimately at the end of the day, there may be more properties that the city needs to take, but certainly isn't something that we would want to be actively pursuing at this point. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Eby.
Thank you. Two questions. First would be for Director Harleton, just regarding the Main Street Infrastructure Renewal Project. Is it moving along these last couple of weeks as expected? Where are we at?
Thank you for the question. We had some challenges gaining isolation on River Street, and that is an interesting and pretty normal point of procedure for water main replacement. We're turning valves that are 85 or 110 years old, so it was a bit of a challenge getting isolation there, and we're moving along. What we've committed is to be done both the paved roads project on Main Street as well as the water main replacement by before sidewalk days. So we're still holding to that schedule.
Okay, thank you. And second is just a point that I want to make regarding the, I've lost it in here, the, well, it's called the Mosaic Place, but I know it's a Moose Jaw Event Center, and rate of recovery. I've never seen this in my entire life here. Cost of recovery 100.12% in the first quarter. I've never seen that before, and that's good news. I'm certain it won't be 100% at the end of the year, but maybe it'll be closer than it's ever been. So that's really good news. And we don't have any representatives here tonight from the event center because I know they've got a big concert on tonight, but good work to them, and that's good news. Thanks.
Thank you. Do you have a comment, Ms. Carmichael?
Thank you, Chair. We will certainly pass it on. Yes, they are too busy with the concert tonight, and for sure, I think in the first quarter of 2024, some concerts that we had, in addition to the great performance of the Warriors, certainly contributed to the success.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Froese.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I always look forward to our first quarter financial report because it's kind of the template for all of the work that's going to be done in our city over the next few months, especially from the engineering side of things. And we're going to be spending, almost $5 million in road and curb and sidewalk repairs, almost $10 million in the cast iron water main and the water main feeder project. And I think it's important to note too, that this is also obviously a really, really busy time for our staff that are out there on the streets doing the work. And a few weeks back, we had a banner over Main Street just reminding people about safety and that, and to obey the safety areas, and not to go through barricades when the road is closed, and be very careful going around our staff as they're doing the work. We've had near misses. And that's one of the reasons why the banner was put up over Main Street, is a reminder to our citizens to take care as they're going around our city staff. So I just wanted to put that out there. But also, I know our citizens are experiencing challenging times. I mean, I get groceries just for my husband and I, and have seen the exponential increase in just my groceries. So when I see that's obviously reflected here in the arrears and that. So it's really important that we move through, as we move through budget and even moving through this year, spending the money that the citizens have left us to steward, that we find efficiencies and continue to find efficiencies as we move through the year. And that, because people are struggling. This is a difficult time, absolutely, for people in our city. It's a difficult time even for the city. I mean, we tried to tender a project for the Crescent View lift station, and it came back $40 million more than what we had thought it was going to cost. So things are, it's a trying time out there trying to get some of this work done and that. So I really appreciate the first quarter financials, and I can see there's going to be lots of great work done in our city over the next few months. And I just wanted to comment on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Eby.
Thank you. I do have another question for Mr. Harleton, and I know that we will deal with this topic again in the next couple of weeks or so, but regarding the traffic control, and we discussed about the signage for if we decide to reduce speed zones, and it was reported and understood that it was going to be over $4 million to reduce the speed zones, and we know that was misinformation, that wasn't disseminated properly through this table or through the report that was given. So would you be able to give a little bit breakdown of that for us tonight? I know we'll discuss it again when it comes for decision, but I think it's really important. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So there will be more information coming on the May 27th executive, where we will be able to discuss the proposed bylaw amendment, and at that time I'll be able to put forward budget information, but I can tell council and the public as it stands that the school zone work will be done under two streams. One is under TR2 sidewalk replacement, and one is TR3 intersection upgrades. The school zone signage project, as well as the improvements to the ramps, that's work that we will proceed with regardless. And then the speeds will be put up depending on council's direction with respect to that bylaw. The cost of the sidewalk work in school zones is $300,000, and we estimate the cost for signs to supply and install to be $200,000. So we're looking at a $500,000 commitment for the school zones project.
And if I may, but when we're talking about signs, it's not just speed signs, it's all the signs in the school zones, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So we're ordering about 650 signs, and if we change the speeds from 40 kilometers an hour to 30, about 120 of those would be required to change from 40 to 30. If we don't, those signs will still very much need to be upgraded for reflectivity and for placement. So in the school zones, we're anticipating around 600 signs to be replaced in new locations as well. Yeah, entirety. So there's a school zone with 12 no U-turn signs. There's just any number of inconsistencies and old signage and old placements that we'll rectify in that project.
Okay, thank you. So when the $4 million was talked about, that's the 5-year capital, right?
Yeah.
That was the 5-year, not this year, not 2024.
That's correct. So referencing that report, all that will be in the background section of those reports is an excerpt of the 5-year capital budget. So there was never anything brought to council to represent a $4.2 million commitment to that project. And I apologize, I wasn't able to catch that during the report. I was unable to find that reference and how that number was brought to be.
No, and that's good, and I appreciate that tonight, and none of us caught it around here either. We read it and we knew that was 5-year capital, and we just, we always assume that everyone else understands those things too, so appreciate the clarity, and we will discuss it further when it comes to executive and then potentially to City Council for ratification. Thank you, Mr. Harleton.
Thank you. Councillor Logan.
Thank you, Chair. Question through you regarding the capital reports. PR 52, the pathway upgrade. I believe it says on hold for now due to planning for close proximity projects. And I'm just wondering if you could give an example of what that might be and why perhaps those are on hold.
Mr. Blais.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, pathway accessibility projects. We were looking at improving the intersection on Highway 2 South, Main Street South, across from Plaxton Lake. There's a crossing there that needs some work. We're just looking at, it's going to require some concrete work as well, so some further discussions with engineering on exactly what that's going to look like. So it's nothing that we have, I guess, tendered yet as we continue to review that.
Gotcha. So just the plan is not to upgrade the intersection and then have to redo it again when Director Harleton's team does their work. Gotcha. Thank you. One more for you, Director Blais. Solar initiatives, anchoring options, the shifting panels, and I'm wondering if you could speak to that. Just, is that a building issue? Is that a warranty issue, a consultant thing? If you could expand on that, please.
Mr. Blake?
Yeah, thank you. So the panels that have been placed on the event center, there's a couple closer to the bottom of the roof that have shifted a bit. We've been told the shifting is normal, but the shifting should stop at some point. So we're kind of monitoring, doing regular measurements to see if that shifting continues. If it does continue, we have worked with the our original manufacturer on some anchoring options. We like to hold that as a last resort. We really don't want to be penetrating that roof unless we absolutely have to. To the warranty question, yes, that would be covered under the warranty, as we were guaranteed there wouldn't be any movement with the panels. So mostly be warranty work there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Over to Director Harleton, I believe those S4 lift stations, we haven't heard yet. I'm wondering if you have any idea when we'll hear regarding the grant applications, and if it's a crystal ball or if you know a set date.
Mr. Harleton?
Yeah, the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund. We check in on that every 3 or 4 weeks to see if we can get a definitive. We haven't heard back. Not having heard back tells me that we've likely passed some first gate and we're being reviewed further, but we haven't heard back with any timelines.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Perhaps I can
again.
add, we had briefed our Member of Parliament on this grant application. Perhaps we will just also continue to do some discussion with stakeholders on this one and inquire.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A couple more. Sorry, Chair.
Yep, you have the floor.
Regarding on the statistical information, this might be for finance. Just of course, the 825K is worrisome year over year. That's the highest amount I can remember increase. On note under that, it says that gone to tender was tender to Transworld Collections, and I'm a little worried that we're going to be. Is that standard process? I don't remember seeing that in reports in the past, and perhaps you can speak to that, please.
Mr. Acker?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to Councillor Logan. So that's a tender for a collection agency. We use that for all of our general accounts receivable. We don't use that for our taxation. And that's been a standard process. It was a 5-year tender that we had, so we've just renewed it again. And we find it really at the end of the day we go through a whole process for our outstanding accounts receivable, but at the end of the day, the collection agency is sort of our last step, and it's very effective in obtaining payment. So,
Sure. Sounds fair. I just seen it below some of the other stats, and I was confused, honestly, and worried about it, perhaps. So thank you for clarifying that. Regarding the Spectra and Moose Jaw Event Center, super happy to see the 100% cost recovery, and I believe that's only including one Warrior playoff game as well. So I'm anxious to see what the second quarter is going to look like, and there's a couple of concerts thrown in, so they're certainly trending in the right direction, and that's nice to see that. Perhaps this year we'll be in better shape than most, and hats off to the team over there. Variable expense on that, we don't have anyone here to speak to it. Perhaps finance can. There's a line item called variable expense, and it's 28K, and I'm just wondering if you could speak to what that might be.
Mr. Acker?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to Councillor Logan. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to provide any specifics.
I was hoping throwing a prayer out there today without a representative here, but I can circle back on that to inquiries next week. And would you note as the payroll number, again, perhaps you don't, but would the payroll number include their burden, or is that something we'd have to ask those folks as well?
I believe their payroll includes their burden.
Okay,
as well.
Thank you. I think that's it for now.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson?
Thank you, Chair. Well, to Councillor Logan, going through some of the capital project stuff. I just had a question regarding the 1.6 million budgeted for the Alexandra Road. I'm sure I've been told this before, but is that a new road out at the Agri-Food Industrial Park? And since we are in Q2, how is that tender coming along?
Who's Ms. Sanson?
Thank you. This is a new road. It'll be the east-west road leading to our new lift station. The lift station was completed last year, but no road to it, so this will be the road. And there will be $350,000 from SaskPower contributing to that.
Excellent. And just a follow-up question to that, we had a virtual open house, I think, at the beginning of May. Did anybody question that during that virtual open house?
Mr. Harleton?
Sorry, Chair, could you repeat the question?
Just the construction of the new Alexander Road at your virtual, I believe we had a capital project virtual open house around the beginning of May, and I went back to look, but the entire recording's only about 15 minutes long. I just wondered if that particular item had been addressed there.
Thank you for that. Perhaps Director Hemingway can answer that. I didn't attend that.
Mr. Hemingway, are you there? Thank you.
Yes, yeah. Whoa. Thank you, Chair, and through you to Councillor Robinson. That question did not come up during the open house.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions? Direction, Council? Councillor Eby?
I move that communication CC 2024-0091 regarding City of Moose Jaw first quarter financial report be received and filed.
Thank you. Motion on the floor. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Next item in Committee of the Whole is communication number 105 from the City Manager's Office re Automated Speed Enforcement Agreement Renewal. Ms. Carmichael.
Thank you, Chair. This report is brought to Council from administration after receiving information from SGI that they would like to renew the agreement that we have for another 5-year term. We've had the agreement with SGI since 2015. Both the police chief and I met with SGI a few months ago to discuss the agreement and the work that we're doing. We're both very pleased with what it has done, both in terms of financial impact and in terms of the ability to reduce the speed in a number of areas around the city. When we're talking about the automated enforcement system, so the cameras that we have both on the highway in some school zones, we've seen positive results. And we know as well on the financial side, you have the comment in the report here that it generates between $600,000 to $800,000 a year for the city that we've been using over the last 5 years between the Moose Jaw Police Service and in our road renewal program as well. Going through the agreement itself, there's nothing that administration would like to see differently. So we agree with SGI's offer to be able to go ahead with another 5 years with this agreement.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Carmichael. Comments or questions? Councillor Froese?
Thank you, Chair. It's really good to see that they're looking to renew and that, because we definitely receive money for this that goes towards safety and traffic initiatives in our city. I'm just wondering, what is the process like if we wanted to add an additional area to this? And the area I'm thinking of is Highway 2 as you come into our city, because you come in off, it splits into a one-way and goes right into a school zone and that, and they do have a speed monitor that shows you how fast you're going, but I'm sure people are going much faster than they're supposed to. But I'm just wondering what the process might be if we wanted to add an additional one, or if there's recommendations that we can offer them.
Mm-hmm. So this is an item that was definitely discussed when we had a meeting. We now have the Moose Jaw Police Service now has a new system, a portable system that we can deploy at different locations around the city in order to be able to gather statistics on the speed. So that's the first step in order to be able to substantiate our request with SGI. And it's a matter of applying once we have the data on a specific location, then it's an application process with SGI. And like I said, we've been successful in the past, and that's what we've done.
Okay, yeah, I think that's definitely worthy to look at, because I think it's definitely made an impact and had people slowing down. But also we receive, people are obviously not slowing down enough because we're receiving traffic tickets from it too. But I think what it also does, when you reduce speed, you reduce collisions. And I know the Moose Jaw City Police have commented on the effectiveness, especially on the Trans-Canada, how it's reduced collisions out on, especially that 9th Avenue southwest or northwest intersection that we have lots of problems around. So I appreciate that. Great. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mayor Tolley?
Excuse me, thank you, Chair. I'll move the motion that City of Moose Jaw agree to renew its automated speed enforcement systems agreement with the Saskatchewan Government Insurance substantially in the form attached to communication CC 2024-0105, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the agreement. And speaking to that, I think when we put the 80 kilometers per hour speed limit on the Trans-Canada Highway, it slowed down traffic, and in discussions with the Moose Jaw City Police, they're not certain that it reduced the accidents, but it's reduced the severity of the accidents. There's been no deaths at that intersection since then. The vehicle damage has been reduced, which SGI is pleased with. So I think it's worked, and if you choose to speed through there, you get a ticket. And I think the original intention simply was to slow the traffic down for safety reasons, and I think it's worked. And of course, we're working towards other safety measures out in that area, but for now, I think that we should continue with this program we currently have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Tolley. There is a motion on the floor. I don't see any other questions or comments in the queue. I will call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Next item in Committee of the Whole is communication number 105 from the City Manager's. No, it isn't. It is communication 80 from the Fire Services Department, replacement of Fire 5N pumper truck. Chief Montgomery. Hello.
Thank you, Madam Chair, City Council. So I'm here in front of you tonight really to ask if you can recall back in 2024 budget that we were going to go to proposal for a new pumper truck, and we've gone through that process. We believe we have a successful proponent. However, we need funding to start in 2024 to make this to work. They'll need a down payment, and then as certain particulars of the truck become available, we'll have to pay for that on a go-forward process, which is fair. So our original request was for $800,000, but in seeing that we're $55,000 short to make this work. So that's what we're asking for, an additional $55,000. We want the budget to be established in 2024. The money, the $55,000, comes from our accumulated surplus that we have in our equipment reserve. So that will offset that cost. So there will be no extra tax burden for the citizens of Moose Jaw. So really, that's our request, and hope you take in consideration.
Thank you, Chief. Comments or questions for the Chief? Council? Councillor Logan.
Thank you, Chair. A question through you to Chief Montgomery. I'd heard from a couple of folks about the truck and the tender process, and it went out, and I'm sure it's a wonderful truck. But just the question I had was, is this truck the same features as the last truck? I'm hearing rumblings that perhaps there's an outside, what would they call it, an outside pump panel on this truck, which essentially is the firemen and women operating the pump from the outside of the truck, which is fine and good in the summer. Doesn't sound so fun in the winter. And I'm just wondering if the chief can comment on that.
Chief Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Logan. A few years back, as we're looking for long-term sustainability and resiliency to our equipment reserve, Engine 3 and Engine 5 became one source of funding. So Engine 3 is and 5 are kind of together. The truck will be a frontline pumper for 15 years, and then it'll go in reserve for another 15, and we'll keep the best going forward. What I can say about this truck is it emulates engine 3, which is a side mount pump. Obviously, a totally enclosed top mounted pump is a favorable truck, no doubt, but if I was coming back, I know the city of Swift Current and North Battleford are doing that today. Now I don't know all their bells and whistles that they have on their truck, but that cost, they're asking at 1.5. So in good conscience, I don't think I can come to council and ask that. This truck will meet our needs, so can't always get you what you want, but you're going to get what you need. And certainly for the citizens of Moose Jaw, our Engine 1 and Engine 2 pumps are our primary pumps. They service the city of Moose Jaw plus 15 wing. Those are totally enclosed pumps. So that meets that. This is, when we go out in the country, it's a little bit different animal. That pump operator's got to be more engaged as well because we only send 4 people typically. So he's not in the cab of the truck as much anyhow. He's off to the side. I hear their comments. I'm not deaf to that, but at the same time, this is what we need. I know what we want, but I think we'd be here next year, quite honestly, at a funding, and in my humble opinion, we may be looking at, we have to find $800,000. Where's that going to come from? And in my humble opinion, and from administration, that only comes in manpower. So we'd have a different conversation next year.
Okay, well, that's good. And manpower aside, what about from the mechanical side of things? Is there any more issues perhaps with an outside control versus an inside control? I'm just thinking out loud here.
Yep, no, great question. Certainly the side mount pump has some advantages that way. It's more accessible, it's easier to maintain. From an engine size or point of view, this new truck will be our highest rated Cummins diesel engine. So we have ISL 9s, we're going to an X12, which is a step above. The pump itself is comparable to most of our trucks. It will be in the middle of the pack, but it's a QMax Hale, which is less maintenance than some of the pumps that we have. So there's a step up on both that. So the motor itself and the pump itself are high quality. It will serve the community well for the next 30 years.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'm no mechanic by any stretch of imagination, but I promised I would ask those questions, and I did so. So thank you very much, Chief. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Eby.
Thanks. Well, the chief just made the point I wanted to be sure was made, but this will be a fire truck that will serve our community for 30 years. So that's a pretty major purchase, and glad that the chief has looked at what we need and that we can approve what we need. And it would always be nice to have what we want. And sometimes we get what we want, but we don't always get what we want. So this is a 30-year purchase, and I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. What are your wishes, Council? Councillor Froese?
Well, I'll move that the city authorize the Department of Fire Services to proceed with the replacement and purchase of Fire 5N with the establishment of a budget of $855,000 in 2024.
Thank you. Seeing no comments or questions further, I'll ask the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Next item in Committee of the Whole and last item is communication number 87 from the Secretary, Development Appeals Board, record of decision of the Development Appeals Board. Oh, Ms. Lugren, sorry, I didn't realize you were coming to speak to this report. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Council. Presented to you this evening is the decision of the Development Appeals Board on April 16th, 2024. The appeals board held a hearing, regarding a development permit denial for the construction of a detached garage that would be centered in the rear yard across 2 lots. The decision of the board was to grant the appeal, and this was communicated to all parties pursuant to Section 225 of the Planning and Development Act 2007. Section 226 of the Planning and Development Act 2007 provides for a mechanism to file an appeal. The Minister of Government Relations, the City Council, the appellant, or any other parties has the ability to file the appeal should they disagree with the decision of the local board. The decision to grant was made by the board after much deliberation and thought, and they put forward what they thought would answer the 3 questions that are required under the Act, that there was no injurious action presented by this, that they would grant this appeal as per any other property, and that they would move ahead without any issues and move forward. This is what's presented to you tonight for your consideration. This is normally a receive and file report as well. I'd be welcome to take any questions that I can answer in the role of secretary.
Thank you, Ms. Lugren. What are your wishes, Council? Councillor Froese.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I just wanted to note that, when you talk about a garage going over 2 properties, this is actually like, not duplexes, it's like a 4-plex kind of thing. So it's not like, one individual house and that, which is why I'm sure they approved that. I just wanted to note that, just for the public's sake. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Eby.
I move that the following decision of the Development Appeals Board be received and filed. 03-2024 Timothy Peakman, 116 Elsom Street.
Thank you. Comments or questions on that motion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Council, your committee of the whole begs to report as follows.
Thank you, Councillor Looning. Councillor Looning has moved that the report of the committee of the whole be taken as read, received, and adopted. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Eby. All in favor? That's carried. Next, we have reports of standing committees of City Council. I'll need a motion that the report of the Executive Committee meeting dated April 22, 2024 be taken as read. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Logan. Second by Councillor Blanc. All in favor? That is carried. Next, I'll need a motion that the report of the Personnel Committee meeting dated May 6, 2024 be taken as read. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Robinson. Second by Councillor Eby. All in favor? That is carried. And I'll need a motion that the report of the Personnel Committee meeting number 2 dated May 6, 2024 be taken as read. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Blanc, second by Councillor Looning. All in favor? That is carried. We'll be moving into matters arising from reports of standing committees. Next, we will move into matters arising from standing committees. Do any councillors wish to bring forward an item from the Executive Committee meeting minutes of April 22nd, 24? I'm seeing none. Therefore, I'll need a motion that the report of the Executive Committee meeting dated April 22nd, 2024 be received and adopted. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Looning, second by Councillor Blanc. All in favor? That is carried. Next, do any councillors wish to bring forward an item from the Personnel Committee meeting minutes of May 6, 2024? I'm seeing none, therefore I'll need a motion that the report of the Personnel Committee meeting dated May 6, 2024 be received and adopted. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Looning, second by Councillor Blanc. All in favor? That is carried. Next, Any councillors wish to bring forward an item from the Personnel Committee meeting number 2, the minutes of May 6th, 2024? I'm seeing none, therefore I'll need a motion that the report of the Personnel Committee meeting number 2 dated May 6, 2024 be received and adopted. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Looney, second by Councillor Blanc. All in favor? That is carried. Next, we have reports from advisory and other committees. We have a report of the Public Art Committee. The minutes are from April 10th, 2024. Councillor Eby. Oh. I'm having a little trouble tonight.
Yep, perfect, thank you. So these are the minutes of the Public Art Committee that was held Wednesday, April 10th, 2024. We do have the Public Art Policy Review that was done. Mr. Blais, was there anything that you thought we should mention regarding that?
Thank you. This would be, I guess, the first review that's occurred since the policy was implemented in 2021. Made a few minor revisions just based on how things have gone the last 2 years, but probably the biggest change, I guess, would be just to their annual budget allocation and how the funding is allocated as it pertains to maintenance of existing public art and new acquisitions. There's been more allocated towards new acquisitions and a reduction in how much is applied to maintenance, and that's just being able to look at how much has been spent on maintenance in the past couple of years, and a want from the committee to be able to have more funding available for new projects. So that'd be the biggest change. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Blais. So with that, I will move that the amended public art policy attached here too as attachment B and forming part of these minutes be approved.
I'll second that.
Councillor Looney seconded that. Councillor Looney has seconded that. All in favor? That is carried.
And there was nothing else that required attention of council, so I will move that the minutes of the Public Art Committee held April 10th, 2024 be received and adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Looney, for the assistance.
Made the
We
motion.
got I'm sorry, you made the motion. We're looking for a seconder. Is there a seconder?
I will second.
Councillor Robinson. Is there an opportunity for discussion here?
Yep.
Yeah. Councillor Eby? Did you have?
No, you just didn't. You didn't.
Okay. Okay, well, my machine told me that there was 3 people who wanted to speak.
Your machine. There was.
My machine.
And then they
Okay, so
removed themselves.
Moved by Councillor Eby, second by Councillor Robinson. All in favor? That is carried. Next, we have a report of the Accessibility Community Advisory Committee, the minutes from April 11th, 2024. Councillor Logan.
Thank you, Your Worship. We had a meeting, of course, and nothing to report tonight that requires council's attention. So I would just move that the minutes of the Accessible Community Advisory Committee meeting held April 11th, 2024 be received and adopted.
Seconded by Councillor Eby. All in favor? That is carried. Next, we have a report of the Heritage Advisory Committee minutes from April 17th, 2024. Councillor Froese.
Thank you, Mayor. There's no approval of council required for these minutes tonight, but I did want to just point out a couple of things. One is that the Veterans Banner Program is closed now for this year, and we had a great response. So there's 24 applicants that will have their banners put up this fall before November 11th. Also, the old CPR station clock tower. I just wanted to give a shout out to Mr. John Trott. He sits on our Heritage Advisory Committee, but he's also an expert in I would guess antique clock maintenance towers. He is integral to our tower here. I don't know if that's an actual title, but it should be. I don't know what they called them 100 years ago. He's integral to our clock tower here in Moose Jaw, but he also volunteers 100% of his time to the CPR clock. And so, as everyone knows, the big steam train that was coming into town was a really good catalyst for CPKC and the owners of the building to get together in order for Mr. Trod to actually be able to go up on a crane with some help to repair the clock so it actually works. And so I just want to give him a huge shout out because it's an enormous amount of volunteer time that he puts forward and his own expertise. And he was really elated that he was able to do that. And of course, everyone that came down to see the big steam train would have seen the clock in complete working order. So I do want to commend him for his dedication to the heritage here in our city. And with that, I would move that the minutes of the Heritage Advisory Committee meeting held April 17th, 2024 be received and adopted.
Do we have a seconder for that motion? Moved by seconded by Councillor Looning. All in favor? That is carried. Next, we have a report of the Youth Advisory Committee. The minutes are from May 1st, 2024. Councillor Froese.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, there's no approval of council required. There's a couple of things, though, that didn't make it in the minutes, and I just wanted to note that one of our students actually takes the minutes of this meeting, so she's always learning and that. But there's two kind of important things here that I wanted to note. One is that the Youth Advisory Committee on their next meeting are going to hold a model council meeting here in our council chambers. So they're actually going to be designating a mayor and a deputy mayor and working through a question and actually debating what it's like to actually sit here at council chambers. So that's coming up for them as well. They've been working all year on priorities that they see that they would like to make some recommendations on behalf of the youth in our city. And so they will be coming to council either late in May or early in June, again with some recommendations and some insights on things that they would like council to look at a little closely. So that's coming up as well. So those two didn't make it into the meeting minutes. But I don't know if we need to add those or if we or if they have to come, does this have to come back to council then corrected, City Clerk?
Ms. Whitkey?
Actually, I would make the recommendation in the next set of minutes that the Youth Advisory Committee, that they put it on their agenda. Again, these minutes are as they are, and there was no recommendations to council for approval.
Right, so send back to the committee then?
Yeah.
For,
just bring it up at the next agenda again for discussion so that it is reflected in the minutes.
Of that meeting.
Because yes, because the group could, the Youth Advisory could then approve or see their minutes and make sure that, or if they have motions that they wish to make.
Okay, and so I can go ahead and move the motion to.
Yep, absolutely. The minutes are as they are, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll move that the minutes of the Youth Advisory Committee meeting held May 1st, 2024 be received and adopted.
Do we have a seconder to that motion? Councillor Eby, all in favor? That is carried. Does any member wish to rise to bring forward a notice of motion this evening? Councillor Robinson?
Thank you, Worship. I may stumble through a bit of this as I've got lots of scribbles here. I hereby give notice that at the next City Council meeting to be held on May 27th, 2024, I would intend to introduce the following motion: that administration be directed to bring forward a bylaw that would restrict the access to parks throughout our city between certain hours. City Clerk, did I phrase that okay?
Ms. Whitkey?
Yes, through you, Chair, to Councillor Robinson, you're just bringing forward the notice for discussion at the next meeting.
That's correct.
Yes.
And further, I would like to give notice that at the next regular meeting of City Council will be held on May 27th, 2024. I would intend to introduce the following motion: that administration be directed to bring forward a bylaw to control the use and access of alleys throughout our city between certain hours However, I would like that we waive the procedure for this particular motion pursuant to section 27(6) of the procedure bylaw and have this motion considered in today's meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Is there a seconder to that motion? Seconded by Councillor Looney. Proceed, Councillor Robinson. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a tough night. I'm still anxious about the last playoff game. Yes, there's been a motion by Councillor Robinson, it's been seconded by Councillor Looney that we would consider it this evening. All in favor of that motion?
Discussion, can we not have discussion? This is just a wait.
This is, okay,
So we can't discuss waiving it or not? City Clerk?
If I may just clarify, this motion is just to allow this notice of motion to be discussed at this meeting. If it is carried, then the next section, which is motions, it will be discussed at this meeting. This is just to allow it to be discussed at this meeting.
okay, so the motion by Councillor Robinson, second by Councillor Looney, is that we be discussing this issue this evening as opposed to putting it back to May 27th. So all in favor of that motion? Opposed? That is carried. Madam City Clerk, direction then, do we start that discussion now?
Yes, now Councillor Robinson will move the motion as he has it. And then the discussion. It is no different than any other motion during committee that you would discuss with a seconder. Yes.
Okay, Councillor Robinson?
Thank you, Worship. Well, I would move that administration be directed to bring forward a bylaw to control the use and access of our alleyways throughout the city of Moose Jaw between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. And just further, if I can say, I have.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Looney. And if I can just speak to that.
Okay.
Times are borrowed from a bylaw that is currently in effect in the city of North Battleford. I've kind of looked at it, and I've done some research on it, but I'm certainly open to suggestions of different times. Thank you.
Does anybody wish to speak to that motion? Councillor Froese?
Thank you, Chair. Well, I know there's a couple of other cities as well that have a bylaw similar to what Councillor Robinson is putting forward, and I understand the reasoning for that, which is some of them restrict time from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. so that people aren't traveling down alleyways that don't live there, aren't visiting in those areas to try to restrict access that way. And so although I think this is really worthwhile to explore, I think that we also need to have some consultation. This would be a pretty big bylaw to move within our city. We've never had anything. It's maybe a little similar to a curfew, so to speak, in some aspects. And also enforcement. How are we going to enforce this? I think we need to consult with the Moose Jaw City Police to see what they would say and what that would look like, so that they could have a little bit of input into this as well. So I think there's a few more moving pieces, although I do absolutely see the merit in the motion, but I think it's important too to consult with our community and consult with the people who are actually going to have to enforce this and have them weigh in on what this is going to look like. Because there's also variations of how much to ticket them, and is this working in other areas, other cities? What are the challenges they're seeing with it and that, and maybe there's ways that we can make it work here within our city without being disruptive to neighborhoods and that as well. So that's just my first initial thoughts on this. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Looney?
Thank you, Mayor Tolley. Well, I'll support the motion. Councillor Robinson brought this forward, I believe, because as has been indicated already, other cities have similar bylaws like this. But the issue is that obviously we need more information, right? And the consultation will be done by administration through the report that they will bring, that this motion, if it passes, will come back to us. And then we can make a decision with all the merit behind it, with all the groups that are going to be involved in that sort of a thing. So, you know, there's really not a lot to be debating about here tonight. It's whether or not we think this is something that our city needs in order to possibly control some of the things that are happening in some of our parks and around the downtown businesses late at night that all of us have heard concerns from landlords and citizens and business owners and that sort of thing, right? So I'm in favor of the motion, and I look forward to hearing back as to how it will work, if it does work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lewinning. Councillor Robinson?
Thank you, Worship. And I thank Councillor Lewinning for concisely saying what I was trying to say. But I have done a number of hours research. I looked to North Battleford for a couple of reasons. Is they had the largest problem with it and have also had the most success with it. Also, I recently attended a community policing event in Saskatoon where this particular bylaw was dissected, the North Battleford bylaw, by a number of other communities, and again, it kind of met all the criteria. But further to what Councillor Lewinning said, I just want this to be considered, and it can be fine-tuned. Certainly, North Battleford, there's no reason you can't go out and, you know, fix your garage at 3 in the morning. Basically, their bylaw says if you have a reason to be there, then there's no problem. If you're just wandering down the alley, then it gives our police service a tool to question somebody, where they certainly can't do that at this point. Thank you for your consideration.
Councillor Logan?
Thank you, Your Worship. I too will be supporting the motion that Councillor Robinson has brought forward. I don't see any harm in coming back with a report and exactly what he said. There's no harm in Susie Smith walking the dog, working on her garage, but someone who has no business being there now, it gives some teeth to the police force to do something about it. And as we've all heard, I think everybody in this room has heard stories of, you know, people loitering or wandering and doing different things and up to no good, just general shenanigans. And I think this will help. Certainly look forward to seeing the report back. So thank you.
Councillor Eby?
Thank you. Well, I won't, yeah, actually I will. I'll repeat everything everybody already said. The notes I had already made were words that everyone's already used. But for me, it's about restricting unwanted access to back alleys. It's not restricting my neighbor from taking their dog out for a pee or whatever. It's unwanted access to alleys. And it just gives our Moose Jaw Police Service a tool, as Councillor Robinson said. Right now, they don't have that tool. They just go and say, scram, get out of here, like whatever. But at least it gives them, it would, if we decide to go that way, give them a tool. And I think it sends a message from our table to the community that we are taking this seriously and looking maybe outside the box a little bit to do something different. Maybe it won't work, maybe it will, but at least we can, we'll look at it, and if we decide to try it, we'll try it. And because what we're doing right now isn't working. So thank you for the motion, and I look forward to supporting it and to getting the report.
I see no additional speakers. We have a motion seconded. All in favor of that motion? That is carried. Now move into bylaws. Bylaw number 5718. We'll need a mover and a seconder that bylaw number 5718, a bylaw to repeal bylaw number 5649, parental leave for elected members, bylaw 2021, be now read a third time, adopted, signed by the mayor and city clerk, dated and sealed. So do I have a mover and a seconder for that bylaw? Moved by Councillor Robinson, second by Councillor Froese. All in favor? That is carried unanimously.
Bylaw number 5718, a bylaw to repeal bylaw number 5649, parental leave for elected members bylaw 2021.
Bylaw number 5719, mobile home licensing bylaw amendment 2024-1. We'll need a mover and a seconder that Deputy Mayor Councillor Looning be allowed to introduce bylaw number 5719, mobile home licensing bylaw amendment 2024-1. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Blanc, second by Councillor Eby. All in favor? That is carried.
Thank you, Mayor Tolley. The purpose of this proposed bylaw is to change the due date for the Schedule B mobile home fees to June 30th for 2024 and to update Schedule A with the 2024 mobile home license fees.
We need a mover and a seconder that bylaw number 5719 be now read a first time. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Logan, second by Councillor Froese. Oh my. All in favor? That is carried.
Bylaw number 5719, mobile home licensing bylaw amendment 2024-1.
We'll need a mover and a seconder. The bylaw number 5719 be now read a second time. Moved by Councillor Eby, second by Councillor Blanc. All in favor? That is carried.
Bylaw number 5719, mobile home licensing bylaw amendment 2024-1.
And we'll need a mover and a seconder that we now go into the committee of the whole under the chairmanship of Deputy Mayor Councillor Looning to consider bylaw number 5719. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Logan, second by Councillor Robinson. All in favor? That is carried.
I will call the meeting of Committee of the Whole to order. Are there any council members who wish to speak respecting this proposed bylaw? I need a mover that clause by clause consideration, Councillor Froese, of the bylaw be and is hereby dispensed with, and that the said bylaw be approved in its entirety. All those in favor? That's carried. Your Committee of the Whole to consider bylaw number 5719, mobile home licensing bylaw amendment 2024-1, begs to report that the bylaw passed this committee without amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Looning. Councillor Looning has moved that the report of the Committee of the Whole be received and adopted. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Logan. All in favor? That is carried. I need a mover and a seconder that bylaw number 5719 be submitted for third reading forthwith. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Eby, second by Councillor Blanc. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. And we'll need a mover and a seconder that bylaw number 5719 be now read a third time, adopted, signed by the mayor and city clerk, dated and sealed. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Logan, second by Councillor Robinson. All in favor? That is carried.
Bylaw number 5719, mobile home licensing bylaw amendment 2024-1.
And we'll move into bylaw number 5720, property tax bylaw 2024. We'll need a mover and a seconder that Deputy Mayor Councillor Looning be allowed to introduce bylaw number 5720, property tax bylaw 2024. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Froese, second by Councillor Robinson. All in favor? That is carried.
Thank you, Mayor Tolley. The purpose of this proposed bylaw is to establish the municipal rates of taxation for the year 2024, define the classes and subclasses to be used for taxation purposes, enumerate the mill rate factors to be applied to each subclass, exclude assessments that generate less than $100 in municipal tax revenue from the supplemental roll for 2024, set a uniform base tax for the purpose of contributing to the Waterworks Capital Fund to partially fund the annual cast iron water mains replacement project and to fund the Parks and Recreation Capital Fund. Indicate the taxation rates for the school divisions as determined by the Lieutenant Governor in Council.
Thank you, Councillor Looning. We'll need a mover and a seconder that bylaw number 5720 be now read a first time. Moved by Councillor Eby, second by Councillor Blanc. All in favor? That is carried.
Bylaw number 5720, property tax bylaw 2024.
We'll need a mover and a seconder that bylaw number 5720 be now read a second time. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Logan, second by Councillor Robinson. All in favor? That is carried.
Bylaw number 5720, property tax bylaw 2024.
And we'll need a mover and a seconder then. We now go into the committee of the whole under the chairmanship of Deputy Mayor Councillor Looning to consider bylaw number 5720. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Blanc, second by Councillor Eby. All in favor? That is carried.
Thank you, Mayor Tolley. I will call the meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order. Are there any council members who wish to speak respecting this proposed bylaw? Seeing none, I need a motion that clause by clause consideration of the bylaw be and is hereby dispensed with, and that the said bylaw be approved in its entirety. That's moved by Councillor Blanc. All those in favor? That's carried. Your Committee of the Whole to consider bylaw number 5720, property tax bylaw 2024, begs to report that the bylaw passed this committee without amendment.
Councillor Looning has moved. The report of the committee of the whole be received and adopted. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Blanc, all in favor? That is carried. And we need a mover and a seconder that bylaw number 5720 be submitted for third reading forthwith. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Robinson. Second by Councillor Logan. All in favor? It's carried unanimously. And we'll need a mover and a seconder that bylaw number 5720 be now read a third time, adopted, signed by the Mayor and City Clerk, dated and sealed. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Eby, second by Councillor Blanc. All in favor? That is carried.
Bylaw number 5720, property tax bylaw 2024.
Thank you, Ms. Whitkey. We'll move into bylaw number 5721, tax payments, discounts, and penalties bylaw amendment 2024. We'll need a mover and a seconder that Deputy Mayor Councillor Looning be allowed to introduce bylaw number 5721, tax payment, discounts, and penalties bylaw amendment 2024. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Robinson, second by Councillor Blanc. All in favor? That is carried.
Thank you, Mayor Tolley. The purpose of this proposed bylaw is to amend bylaw number 5692, tax payments, discounts, and penalties bylaw 2023-1, and the due date for property taxes for the year 2024.
Thank you. And we'll have we need a motion, a mover and a seconder that bylaw number 5721 be now read a first time. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor Froese. All in favor? That is carried.
Bylaw number 5721, tax payments, discounts, and penalties bylaw amendment 2024.
Councillor Looning, we'll need a mover and a seconder that bylaw number 5721 now be read a second time. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Eby, seconded by Councillor Blanc. All in favor? That is carried.
Bylaw number 5721, tax payments, discounts, and penalties bylaw amendment 2024.
We'll need a mover and a seconder that we now go into the committee of the whole under the chairmanship of Deputy Mayor Councillor Looning to consider bylaw number 5721. Moved by Councillor Froese, seconded by Councillor Blanc. All in favor? That is carried.
Thank you, Mayor Tolley. I'll call the meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order. Are there any council members who wish to speak respecting this proposed bylaw? Councillor Eby.
Thank you. I do have a question for Director of Finance. I'm not sure if this is exactly the place to ask it, but I'm going to ask it because the title of this bylaw is Discounts and Penalties Bylaw Amendment. I had a couple calls regarding citizens, taxpayers wanting to know if there would be an extension on the discount date that was established because we changed the way we were letting people know when many residents were waiting for their tax notices to come in the mail. And as you know, as everyone is aware, we decided not to do that this year because communication was going to be so good, nobody would not know what was happening. And people did not know what was happening. And so my response was, I do not have that power to say, yeah, for sure you can have that. But I just want to get clarification on the dates and on all that so that it will be publicly reported, and then I can also take that back to these people who've contacted me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Councillor Eby. So this bylaw establishes the March 31st as deadline for the discount program. As Council is aware, we had brought that to you prior to 2024 in regards to discontinuing that paper notice that we sent out to everyone. That saved the city about $12,000 in terms of postage alone, not to mention the manpower involved. What we did is we went on a fairly extensive communication campaign, which included print media, social media. There was a number of reports in the media. As you will recall, Councillor Eby, I believe you asked me just prior to the end of March, where we again brought it up at Council. So there was a lot of opportunities to get it out there. I know within the finance department, we did have a number of people call in who didn't receive a notice. Certainly we helped them. We either directed them to the website where they could find out the amount, or we simply just told them the amount and paid it in that regard. We haven't had a lot of people coming in saying, you know, extend the discount period. Actually, this is the first I've heard somebody actually coming forward and suggesting that. But unfortunately, at this point in time, that would be almost impossible. We've received, obviously, payments since then, people paying in good faith, knowing there was no discount. To change that would be very difficult. I would suggest it's like many things. It's a matter of people getting used to it. No matter how much you go out there and try to get that message out, there will always be exceptions where people may have missed out on hearing that message. But I think going forward, once we've established this pattern, that should go away in terms of people missing out and not knowing that. One thing I would note is we are one of the few communities that still has a discount program in Saskatchewan. And in that regard, unfortunately, there just wouldn't be an opportunity to extend it at this time. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that and understood all that. Just wanted to have it back out there one more time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eby. Any other comments or questions on this? Okay, I just need someone to move clause by clause consideration. Councillor Logan, of the bylaw be and is hereby dispensed with, and that the said bylaw be approved in its entirety. All those in favor? That's carried. Your committee of the whole to consider bylaw number 5721, tax payments, discounts, and penalties bylaw amendment 2024, begs to report that the bylaw passed this committee without amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Looning. We'll need a mover and a seconder. The report of the committee of the whole be received and adopted. Moved by Councillor Blanc, seconded by Councillor Logan. All in favor? That is carried. We'll need a mover and a seconder. The bylaw number 5721 be submitted for third reading forthwith. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor Robinson. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. And we'll need a mover and a seconder that bylaw number 5721 be now read a third time, adopted, signed by the mayor and city clerk, dated and sealed. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Eby. All in favor? That is carried.
Bylaw number 5721, tax payments, discounts, and penalties bylaw amendment 2024.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk, and thank you, councillors, for your patience in getting through those bylaws. We'll next move into inquiries. Are there any inquiries to be asked of City Administration this evening? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've got a few. I was practicing, so. Firstly, and I know this has been answered in part, but nature of my inquiry is the tax gap analysis. With respect to the tax gap analysis, what percent of the gap reduction is attributable to council mill rate factor, and what percent of the provincially mandated change is accessible or inaccessible value? Noting that I would like administration to disregard the levies for infrastructure and Parks and Rec, as well disregard changes to the commercial appeal allowance. Another inquiry I have is parking meter revenues. With respect to the above, I would like to inquire what direct street metered revenues average on an annual basis, and if possible, delineate the revenues from meters located within one city block of Main Street, using First Avenues West and East as a location separation. And my last inquiry, the City of Moose Jaw workers' compensation burden. With respect to the above, please provide a brief answer, including our WCB premiums paid in each fiscal year starting at 2018 through to 2023, along with incident counts, lost time days, and no lost time incidents. And additionally, please include the 2024 rate per $100 and an expected 2024 premium burden. Thank you.
I see no further inquiries to be asked of city administration. Oh, Councillor Logan, 1 second.
Sorry, I thought I was in line, so I wasn't quick to push the button. My apologies. I have a couple of inquiries also. I think mine may be a little easier. Regarding the school zones signage that's upcoming at the next executive meeting on May 27th, I believe it was. This is through you, Chair, to Director Harleton, I believe. We're going to replace, potentially, if this passes, school zone signage and speed limit signage, et cetera, around schools. And I'm wondering if the schools that are scheduled for closure are included in that task.
Thank you, Chair, for the question. This was a point of discussion in engineering over the last few weeks, and we've decided to move forward with including those locations. First, given what we know right now, those schools are open in September, so we will include them for that reason. And then moving forward, whether it's a playground or some sort of park space, we would be accommodating for that in the future. So what may have to happen, location dependent, is a school zone would be changed to a playground zone. But we're anticipating that whether it's ball diamonds or a park, that will be a space used for kids. So we'll include that in our upgrades.
Thank you. And so then in the future, if such a thing, those schools are commissioned in a different way, perhaps as a residential area or something, those signs would then be taken back into inventory and replaced with standard speed limit signs, I assume? Not going to go to waste is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, we would include those locations, and if things change in that in a given spot and we have to change signage or remove signage, that would be what we would do, is we'd accommodate those changes.
Thank you. I had a citizen ask me that and I didn't know the answer, so that was the reason for that request. And then regarding First Avenue parking, the mobile only along First Avenue West, I'm just wondering if you could give some indication of what the uptick was on that, and if do we know via the app how successful that project was?
In an effort to be accurate, that will be covered in our quarterly report, the department quarterly report, which I believe comes at next council. So I'll be able to provide that at that point.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other inquiries to be asked of city administration? We have one response to written inquiries. That is regarding a tax gap analysis. Councillor Robinson, did you want an opportunity to comment on the answer you received?
Yeah, certainly, Your Worship.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, I did receive a very concise answer from our Financial Services Department, and I thank you very much. And as to Director Acker's comment that he thought it was around 50-50, this report shows me it's very close to that. However, as I mentioned previously in my inquiries, this report does say that in addition to the sharing of the tax increase, levies and changes in respect to commercial appeal allowance can also have an effect on the tax cap, and these have not been excluded. And that was the basis for my follow-up inquiry. But I thank Financial Services for your answer.
All right, the next meeting of City Council is scheduled for Monday, May 27th, 2024. With that, we're adjourned. 5 minutes